What's going on, everyone? We are back, and today we are concluding our Week 15 NFL game picks outright versus the spread, along with our locks of the week. So let's get right into it. Kicking off our week, we had the LA Chargers at the Kansas City Chiefs matchup, and what a game that was. Now, I'm not going to get too much into this recap because we did break down this game earlier in the week. So if you haven't yet, go ahead, check that out. You'll see a link in the description. But just the main highlights of that game, the Chargers obviously getting the victory in the last seconds, going for two, gutsy call, but it pays off. Their record is now even with the Kansas City Chiefs, 11-3. These are going to be some very interesting games left in the final weeks of the season for both of these squads. And for the Chargers, they are now a playoff team officially. And for us, man, we got off to a great start this week, predicting this game accurately, not only outright, but also on the spread. It was a tough matchup, but hopefully this streak continues as we now look at our first slew of Saturday games for the season. Kicking things off on Saturday, we have got the Houston Texans at the New York Jets. The Texans 9-4, coming off that loss to the Indianapolis Colts last week. A game where, the Colts got out to a lead and the Texans had to work for it. Ultimately, it was too little too late for them. Made it a contest, but the Colts were victorious, and that snaps that insane winning streak that the Texans had built since the start of the season. Then the New York Jets, they are 4-9, and they're actually coming off of a victory versus the Buffalo Bills, a game where they came from behind. Sam Darnold was able to lead them victorious, and now their reward is facing this Houston Texans team that is without a doubt going to be very upset at themselves for not only losing, but losing to a divisional opponent in the Colts, who are their biggest threat. And look, I actually think this is the perfect bounce back scenario for the Texans. I think they'll be able to win this game, even though it's a road game, even though the Jets had some success. I think that defense comes back and they're angry, and I think they take it out on Sam Darnold. We've seen how inconsistent he has been. He is back as the starter for the Jets. I expect several turnovers by him. And then Isaiah Crowell also being placed on IR. That's going to hurt things a little bit for the Jets, but I do think Elijah McGuire will be able to handle the load. I just don't think it's the best type of matchup. I really do think that defensive line will shut things down offensively for the New York Jets. And then the Texans offensively, I think Deshaun Watson doesn't have too bad of a matchup here. I think him, DeAndre Hopkins, even Lamar Miller could have a nice game again. I think the Texans win this game on the road. I think they should be favored by at least a touchdown. I'll take them outright. I think they pull away late in this game. On the spread, the Jets are plus 6.5. And since I do think the Texans get this victory by at least a touchdown, I will take the Texans on the spread. Next, for our Saturday night game, we've got the Cleveland Browns at the Denver Broncos. The Browns 5-7-1, coming off a great win versus the Carolina Panthers, a game where they came from behind, led by Baker Mayfield, who had a great day, had some really nice throws. Jarvis Landry had a big day, and ultimately that defense stepped up and contained Cam when it mattered most. And now the question is, will this continue versus the Denver Broncos, who are 6-7, coming off one of their worst losses of the season after going to San Francisco and losing on the road? I realize it was a road game, tough environment without Emmanuel Sanders, but still that was a game that the Broncos should have won versus a team without their starting quarterback. I still think that with Phillip Lindsay, with some of those pieces defensively, they should be dangerous and they should beat teams like the 49ers. And that was a game that just meant so much for the Broncos because they could have kept pace with all those teams that are vying for that last wild card spot. Now, I do think we are looking at a scenario not only for the Broncos, but for the Browns where it's just a little too late. Even if they go ahead and almost win out, there's just not enough time left for them to sneak into that final wild card spot, unfortunately. Looking at this matchup, however, I think it'll be a close game. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes into overtime, something like that. And right now, I'm giving the slight edge to the Cleveland Browns. To me, they are the hotter team. Baker Mayfield, I think, will have a strong finish to the season. And right now, they're just clicking offensively. I think they're healthier offensively. Nick Chubb having a great season as the featured guy. And for the Denver Broncos, I think they're still working out the kinks of playing without Emmanuel Sanders. To me, they're going to need a great effort by Lindsay to dominate offensively to have a chance in this game. Also going to need that same effort from their defense. I do like them being at home. That is a great place for them. Great home field advantage in my opinion. That's why I could see this game going either way, but on paper, I favor the Browns, as crazy as that sounds. I think it'll be a close game. I think it's decided late. Like I said, wouldn't be surprised if it goes to overtime, but ultimately, I will take the Browns outright. On the spread, the Broncos are actually favored -3.5, but I will take the Browns there as well. Even if I was going with the Broncos as the game pick, I would still take the Browns on the spread. I think it'll be a very close game. Like I said, I think it'll be decided by right around the field goal, so Browns on the spread. Moving on, we have got the Arizona Cardinals at the Atlanta Falcons. Both these teams coming off of losses, and losses that weren't all that close to begin with. For the Cardinals, they are 3-10 after losing to the Lions, a game where the Cardinals just couldn't really get anything going whatsoever on either side of the football. Then the Falcons, 4-9 after losing the Green Bay Packers, a game where they were able to get some garbage time points to make that score look somewhat respectable, but honestly, the Packers dominated that game from the get-go. And unfortunately for both these teams at this point in time, we're not going to see either in the playoffs, so they don't have much to play for here other than draft positioning, even though neither of the teams is going to come out and say it. But for now, the matchup itself, look, the Falcons are by far the better team here on paper. It starts with the offensive talent led by Matt Ryan. Give me Matt Ryan over Josh Rosen every single day. Julio Jones, an elite wide receiver in his prime. The Cardinals don't have that. And on top of all this, he is surrounded by good pieces. You know, Sanu, Ridley, Coleman, just a much more balanced offensive attack. Where it'll get interesting is defensively, because we know the defensive issues the Falcons have had all year, and the Cardinals can still make some games competitive and ugly, led by Patrick Peterson. He will most likely be on Julio Jones. I know there were some reports that Julio was getting in limited practices, but I do think he will play. And most likely be shadowed by Patrick Peterson, so it'll be interesting to see what type of day Julio Jones will have. That's the one thing that gives me pause in this matchup, because even though I like the Falcons outright, they're at home, great environment for them. They should win this game by all accounts. The spread, -8.5 for the Falcons. I could see this game being a little bit closer than that. I could see it being a little bit ugly, a little bit lower scoring than some people anticipate. And for that reason, I'm actually going to take the under on the spread. I'm going to go ahead and say the Cardinals cover the spread. I think it'll be a winning performance by the Falcons. I think they win by a touchdown, but I think it'll be right around there. I'll take the Cardinals cautiously on the spread. I think that's where it'll be really interesting here. Ultimately, I think it could go either way. I do think the Falcons win outright without a doubt, though. Continuing on, we have got the Detroit Lions at the Buffalo Bills. The Lions 5-8 after beating the Arizona Cardinals last week, and then Buffalo 4-9 after losing to the New York Jets late in that game, letting that lead slip away. Unfortunately so, but that was the case. And looking at this matchup, look, I think the scenario for the Lions, if they want to beat the Bills, I think it'll be a little bit tougher than people expect. Even though the Bills are actually favored in this game, I like the Lions for the simple reason that the formula to beating the Bills is as follows. Limit Josh Allen in his rushing attempts and his rushing yards, and then limit the big plays, because honestly, that's how the Bills get their scoring for the most part offensively. Now, I do think this will be a lower scoring game than people expect, because that Buffalo Bills defense, it can go ahead and make some games ugly, lower scoring, and those are the type of games that the Bills want to find themselves in if they have a chance to win. Buffalo, tough environment to play in as well. For the Lions, they'll be without Kerryon Johnson. He is obviously a big name, a big weapon for them offensively. We know all the issues they have had at the wide receiver position. They have been underwhelming as a whole this entire year. Same deal with Matthew Stafford. He hasn't had a good campaign either. But ultimately, the reason I like the Lions here is because I will take Matthew Stafford over Josh Allen purely as a passer. I just have more faith in him as the game goes on. I think he'll be able to make one or two more plays in a game that should be close, and for that reason, I give the slight edge to the Lions. I think they go on the road, they win a game that'll more likely be lower scoring and ugly, but the Lions win still. On the spread, it's -2.5 for the Bills. Since I like the Lions to win, however, I will take them on the spread. Next, we have got a classic NFC divisional clash, the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. The Packers 5-7-1 after beating the Atlanta Falcons. No Mike McCarthy, no problem. Aaron Rodgers just said watch this and then delivered. Then the Chicago Bears 9-4 coming off their best victory of the year, taking down the LA Rams. Wow, what an effort by the Bears. Holding that Rams offense to only 6 points, incredible defensive performance from them. Had a nice rushing day from Jordan Howard, and that's the formula they need to follow going forward. Obviously, the Bears are a dangerous team. They've proven they can beat other elite teams as well. But going forward, they're going to have to limit the amount of things that Mitchell Trubisky has to do because we've seen accuracy is not his strong suit. We saw it versus the Rams. Obviously, he was coming back from injury, so maybe a little bit rusty, give him a pass there, but at some point in time, he will have to put that Bears team on his shoulders, on his back, and lead them offensively. And we haven't seen that too many times this season. And I do think this week could be one of those times because I think this will be a close game. I think it could be lower scoring. And if the Green Bay Packers have the ball last, I have full faith in Aaron Rodgers doing what he needs to do and getting a couple points for the Packers, whether it be a field goal, whether it be a touchdown. The question is, will Mitchell Trubisky be able to answer? And right now, I'm not quite sure. Obviously, we know what this Bears defense can do. The first time these two teams played, they were able to get Rodgers nicked up, but ultimately he returned, he went ahead, and then led that comeback. Great game all around, early parts of the season. And don't think the Bears have forgotten about that. Because there is going to be some bad blood between these teams. Obviously, they're divisional opponents, so that's always the case. But something I will mention here, don't be surprised if there's a little bit of a letdown by the Bears after beating a team like the Rams. That was a very exhausting victory for them. Sometimes a team falls flat afterwards the following week. And the Packers, for them, right now, they are in elimination mode. They need to win out to have any type of chance to get a wild card. I know it's an outside chance and a long shot at that, but they do have a scenario if they win out and they get some things going for them to potentially sneak in that wild card spot. I think this will be a close game. Look, it's a Chicago game at Chicago. If you look at just this season, the Bears should be favored, but if you look at a long picture kind of deal, the Packers have pretty much owned the Chicago Bears these last couple of years, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case here. I think the Packers actually win this game. This is one of my upsets of the week. The Bears favored. They are -5.5. Even if I was picking the Bears to go ahead and win this game, I would still pick the Packers on the spread. To me, it's close to a coin flip, but close enough where I could go with the Packers in this game. I think Aaron Rodgers will be able to do enough things. I ultimately think he gets the ball last and he is able to drive the Packers down the field for a potentially game-winning touchdown, game-winning field goal, and the Packers barely eke out a victory here. For that reason, I like them outright, and I like them on the spread. Moving on, we have got the Oakland Raiders at the Cincinnati Bengals, and both these teams coming off very surprising performances in Week 14. For the Raiders, 3-10, beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. Go figure. I don't think that was a game that a lot of people saw coming, and kudos to the Raiders. Nice little pat on the back for them. Then the Cincinnati Bengals, 5-8, ultimately losing to the Chargers, but that was a game that was a lot closer than it should have been considering how depleted the Bengals offense is. And now looking at this week, first and foremost, I think this will be a very high-scoring game. It has the potential for it considering the two defenses involved, and I think guys like Boyd and Mixon could have huge days, especially Mixon considering the Bengals are with a backup quarterback and they could rely on the rush to go ahead and alleviate some pressure. Now, I realize the Raiders still have Carr, they still have their starting quarterback, but right now I just think that the Bengals have more marquee guys, more studs offensively, and that's what it's going to come down to, offensive performance in this game. And honestly, I just don't see the Raiders putting back-to-back wins considering how much that would hurt their draft positioning. And let's not pretend that the Raiders are looking at anything other than where they are drafting in the 2019 draft, because that is all they care about considering all the trades they have made and pretty much how they've tanked the season. So for that reason, I like the Bengals to win this game. The spread -2.5, to me, that's low enough to go ahead and pick the Bengals to cover. I like them outright and on the spread. Continuing on, we have got the Dallas Cowboys at the Indianapolis Colts. Both these squads coming off great divisional victories. The Cowboys 8-5 after beating the Eagles in a back-and-forth game that went into overtime. Very entertaining late, huge game from Amari Cooper and Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. And then the Indianapolis Colts 7-6 beating the Houston Texans. Great victory for them to keep pace in that wild card battle. And right now, this is a game that means a lot more for the Indianapolis Colts. Make no mistakes about it, because the Cowboys pretty much have wrapped up the NFC East. Everyone in that division is either injured or too far back to go ahead and catch them. Whereas the Colts, man, there are still a lot of other teams alive in that wild card race. They need this game. And this is one of the games to watch this week, in my opinion. I think it'll be very entertaining. I think it has the potential to be very high scoring as well. For the Cowboys, I think feature Ezekiel Elliott. That's been the formula that's been working. I don't necessarily think Amari Cooper is going to have as good of a game as he did last week. I think it'd be ludicrous to expect something like that from him again, even though we know that the Colts defense is not the best unit in the league. But still, right now, offensively, the Colts behind Andrew Luck, he can go ahead and put up points against anyone. We saw it versus that Houston Texans defense. I know the Cowboys defense is their strength, but I really do think Andrew Luck will be able to get his plays and put up points versus the Cowboys. And honestly, I like the Colts at home to win this game, because in a shootout, I have a lot more faith in Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton than I do in Dak Prescott. And that offense, I realize Ezekiel Elliott is a big piece, and the Colts don't have anyone to really go ahead and match him in that department. So the Cowboys definitely have the advantage there. But like I said, in a high-scoring affair, I will take Andrew Luck over Dak Prescott. Luck has been the more consistent quarterback all season long. I give the Colts the advantage here. I think this will be a very entertaining game, and I think it'll be close going late into the fourth quarter. But ultimately, give me the Colts to win this game outright. On the spread, they're favored -2.5. And I'll take them to cover. I think they win by at least a field goal, so the Colts on the spread as well. Next, we have got the Tennessee Titans at the New York Giants. Both these sides coming off dominant performances, dominant victories. The Titans 7-6 after defeating the Jacksonville Jaguars, led by Derrick Henry and his incredible performance, while the New York Giants 5-8 after pretty much destroying the Washington Redskins. But unfortunately, that's the way it goes for the Redskins. They just have been incredibly unfortunate with injuries, and the Giants capitalized on that. Now, in this game, the Giants are actually favored at -2.5, which I find somewhat surprising considering the news that Odell Beckham will not be playing in this game. That is a big piece to be without. I do anticipate Saquon Barkley obviously being featured, having a potentially big day, but man, the Tennessee Titans defense, I do think, can go ahead and slow down Saquon Barkley a little bit more so than some people expect. For the Titans, this is a game that means a lot more. Right now, if they want any chance of keeping up pace with all those other teams in the AFC, they need to win this game. It's a road game. We know the Titans have the tendency to go ahead and play that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde role and, perform one week and then kind of disappear the next. So we'll see what version of the Titans we get this week. I do think this will be a close game. Neither of these teams is that consistent, so both teams should have opportunities to win, but ultimately I will take the Titans. I think right now they are healthier. Having Odell Beckham missing in this game for the Giants, I think, will be a key factor and a key reason why the Titans should be favored. So I will take the Tennessee Titans to go on the road and get this victory. I like them outright. On the spread, like we said, the Giants favored at -2.5. But since I like the Titans, I'll take them on the spread as well. Next, we have the Miami Dolphins at the Minnesota Vikings. The Dolphins 7-6, coming off that incredible, crazy performance versus the New England Patriots, where they were victorious via several laterals late in the game. The Miami Miracle, as it's been coined since then. A missed Gronk tackle and one touchdown later, the Dolphins are victorious, and they're still in contention for that wild card spot. Call it whatever you want. Call it luck, call it skill. I call it impressive, and I call it entertaining as heck. I don't necessarily think that the Dolphins are as good as their record suggests. It's 7-6. Let me say that. And then the Minnesota Vikings 6-1. They got pretty much spanked by the Seattle Seahawks, and I do think they should get the victory here. This is a game That's at home for the Vikings. I think offensively, obviously, the news has been filled with the changes they have done on their coaching staff, shaking things up a little bit. But still, I do think they have a lot more firepower here. Kirk Cousins, Thielen, Diggs, Cook. And I do think that Minnesota Vikings defense steps up here versus Tannehill and versus the Dolphins, who I think will still be riding that high versus the victory against the New England Patriots. So for that reason, I'll take the Minnesota Vikings. To me, they're just the more complete team. They're more consistent offensively. They're better defensively. It's a home game for them. And if they want any chance of keeping up in the wild card spot in the NFC, they also need this victory. So for both sides, this is a very important game, but ultimately I give the Vikings the edge here. I like them outright on the spread, -6.5. I think the Vikings can go ahead and cover. I think they blow this game wide open late in the fourth quarter. I think it could be close in the first three, but then the Vikings shut it down and lock up the game. I'll take them on the spread. Continuing on, we've got the Tampa Bay Bucks at the Baltimore Ravens. The Bucks 5-8 after that loss to the New Orleans Saints, a game that was closer in the first half than the score might indicate. The Bucks kept it close, but ultimately New Orleans went ahead and were victorious, led by Drew Brees. And then Baltimore, man, they are 7-6, and talk about a tough loss, a game that they should have won by all accounts versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Goes into overtime. They weren't lucky there. Patrick Mahomes was able to lead the Chiefs to the victory, but look, it's not all gloom and doom for the Ravens. They were still very competitive in a game that was versus an elite opponent. And the interesting thing here for the Ravens, the news that a lot of people were expecting broke earlier this week. Lamar Jackson will continue to be the starter for the Ravens. Joe Flacco will be the number 2. And let's be honest, Lamar Jackson went ahead and earned that. And the way the Ravens had been performing these last couple of weeks, I don't think the coaching staff had many other choices. They pretty much had to go in this direction. And as crazy as it sounds, even though the Ravens are 7-6 and vying for that final wildcard spot, along with all of these other AFC teams, they still have a chance at the division title if the Steelers continue to slip up. And Lamar Jackson has been a big reason why. And versus the Tampa Bay Bucks in Baltimore, I think Lamar Jackson will have another big day. I think he'll be able to expose that defense. And I like the Baltimore Ravens to win this game, plain and simple. This is going to be one of my locks of the week. I think we see multiple touchdowns by Lamar, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a defensive touchdown by the Baltimore Ravens. I do think Jameis Winston is a guy that's not afraid to take shots, and that's going to lead to some turnovers here. I'll take the Ravens to win this game outright. On the spread, the Ravens favored by -7.5. No surprise there. I will take the over. I think the Ravens can go ahead, cover the spread. Like I said, after a combination of several turnovers and a potential defensive score, I think they win by at least 10 points here. Moving on, we have got the Washington Redskins at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Both these teams coming off blowout losses. The Redskins losing to the New York Giants. They now sit at 6-7, and then the Jaguars, they are 4-9 after getting routed by the Tennessee Titans last week. The question here now becomes, who wants this game more? Both these squads have challenged offenses at this point in time, and it starts at the quarterback position because there have been a lot of changes for both these teams there. In the case of the Redskins, it's been due to injury. They now have the backup to the backup of the original quarterback, while the Jaguars are in that situation because of poor play by the quarterback. So different reasons, but ultimately same situation. I do like the Jaguars more so in this game, particularly because of the Leonard Fournette factor. I think they will lean on him as they should. I don't think the Redskins have anyone that's as dominant as Leonard Fournette. Jordan Reed is set to sit out. I think that will be a loss, a big loss offensively for the Redskins. And then defensively, look, it's tough to go ahead and rely on either of these teams. For the Jaguars, they might have the names, but they don't have the production this year. And honestly, you could make the same case for the Washington Redskins, but ultimately this game is in Jacksonville. The Leonard Fournette factor, I'm going to go ahead and say the Jaguars win this game. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be low scoring, but ultimately give me the Jaguars outright. On the spread, however, I think it's a little bit too high for the Jaguars, -6.5. I have no faith that the Jaguars can go ahead and win this game by a touchdown. I will take the Redskins on the spread. Next, we have another NFC divisional clash with the Seattle Seahawks at the San Francisco 49ers. The Seahawks 8-5 after routing the Minnesota Vikings. And pretty much right now, Seattle has that 5th seed locked up in the NFC, while the 49ers, they are 3-10, beating the Denver Broncos last week. Nice little win for them, but let's make no mistakes about it. Even though this is a home game for the 49ers, we all know who is going to win this matchup. The Seattle Seahawks should be victorious, led by Russell Wilson, led by Chris Carson, and that defense, which has been playing really good as of late. I think they dominate the 49ers. When these two teams played several weeks ago, it was a dominant victory by the Seattle Seahawks. I realize that game was in Seattle, but I see no reason why that success shouldn't carry forward into San Francisco, giving me the Seattle Seahawks to win this game. It's pretty cut and dry in my opinion, this matchup. I like the Seahawks outright. The 49ers on the spread plus 5.5. I think that's way too low. I think the Seahawks can go ahead and win this game by at least a touchdown. Give me Seattle on the spread as well. Continuing on with one of the marquee matchups of the week, we have got the New England Patriots at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Patriots 9-4, coming off a heartbreaking loss to the Miami Dolphins on a final play that took just some incredible things to happen. Poor tackling by the Patriots, poor play design, and then obviously a whole lot of luck by the Dolphins. That lateral that is now dubbed the Miami Miracle, but good for the Dolphins, unfortunate for the Patriots. Then the Pittsburgh Steelers, 7-5-1 after their own very tough loss to the Oakland Raiders. Who would have thought it? Now on a little bit of a losing streak, and unfortunately it doesn't get any easier versus the New England Patriots. I realize on paper the Steelers should probably be favored here. It's a home game for them. They have the possibility of getting James Conner back. He practiced on a limited basis on Friday. If he returns in any capacity, that is a nice boost for that Pittsburgh Steelers offense. And they have got the better pass catchers with Antonio Brown and Juju Smith. Big Ben, just as good as Tom Brady, even though Tom Brady last week looked stellar. Unfortunately, it was in defeat. But call me crazy. I just think the Patriots are going to go into Pittsburgh and still get this victory. To me, right now, they're just a little bit more of a complete team. The Steelers are on a little bit of a downward spiral. Heck, they're in a situation where they could potentially lose the division hold to the Baltimore Ravens. This is a lot more meaningful of a game to the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's going to be a lot more pressure on them to go ahead and get this victory. And Tom Brady, I think he's going to have a good day. I think Julian Edelman, Gronk, Josh Gordon, all those guys are going to have good days. I realize the Pittsburgh Steelers defense a little bit better than that of the New England Patriots. But again, I'm going to go ahead and bet on Tom Brady late in the season. I just have more faith in the New England Patriots than the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's barely there, but I like the Patriots. I'll take them outright on the spread, plus 1.5 for the Steelers. It's pretty much a pick'em game, so I'm going with the Patriots there. I think it'll be very close. I think it'll be very entertaining. Gets decided late in the fourth quarter. Pretty much a flip of the coin for who wins this game. But like I said, I will take the Patriots. I think they eke out the victory on the road to go ahead and get back to their winning ways. Getting to Sunday Night Football, we've got the Philadelphia Eagles at the LA Rams. The Eagles 6-7 after that tough loss to the Dallas Cowboys in overtime. And the LA Rams 11-2 coming off their own loss to the Chicago Bears. A game where they just couldn't get it going offensively. And in this matchup, I look for the Rams to rebound in a big way. For the Eagles, the news came out earlier this week. Carson Wentz won't be playing. The potential rest of his season could also be in jeopardy. So insert Nick Foles into this game. Look, I realize Foles went ahead and led the Eagles on their magical run last year, but it's not happening here versus the LA Rams. I think the Rams get back into their offensive rhythm. I think Goff, I think Gurley, both those guys are going to have huge games. I think they're going to ride Todd Gurley, build a nice lead, and then ride that rushing attack. And to me, this is going to be a double-point margin of victory for the Rams. I just don't think the Eagles have enough weapons with Carson Wentz out. I think they're going to go ahead and struggle versus a Rams team that is probably livid after coming off that loss to the Chicago Bears. They need to go ahead and get a victory here to keep pace with the New Orleans Saints if they want ability at home field advantage. So for that reason, the Rams should win this game handily. It's in LA. They have everything going for them. I think that defense will also have some success versus Nick Foles. But like I said, look for this game to be led by Jared Goff and Todd Gurley. Both those guys should have incredible days. That's my prediction here. The Rams win this game outright on the spread, -9.5. Might seem like a high number. Might be a little bit nervous if Carson Wentz was playing here, but with Nick Foles, I think the Rams go ahead, cover the spread, win by double digits. And finally, we get to Monday Night Football. We've got the New Orleans Saints at the Carolina Panthers, NFC divisional clash. The Saints 11-2 after taking care of the Bucs last week, whereas the Carolina Panthers 6-7, and their unprecedented slide continues after losing to the Cleveland Browns last week. And now, in order to get back into the win column, they're going to have to do it versus the New Orleans Saints. That is a very tall task, and I don't think it's going to be one that they're going to accomplish, honestly. Even though it's a home game for the Panthers, right now, I just like the Saints better all around. They've got the better offense, they've got the better quarterback, or at least they've got the more accurate quarterback, which is what you want in a high-scoring affair, which I do think this has the potential to be. And Drew Brees, in my opinion, also has the better weapons. At the running back position, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, that's a better duo than Christian McCaffrey and anyone that the Panthers have behind him, as good as McCaffrey has been all season long. And then Michael Thomas, elite wide receiver. The Panthers don't have anyone in that category. And then defensively, I think the Saints, honestly, I don't think they're that much worse than the Panthers defensively. The Panthers extremely overrated in that field. Even though they've got Luke Kuechly and a guy like K'Wan Short, they can only do so much. In the secondary, that's where the issues have been for a while for this Panthers defense, and Drew Brees is a guy that's going to be able to pick them apart there. I predict a big game for him. I predict a big game for Michael Thomas. Wouldn't be surprised if he honestly gets close to 200 yards. That's how bad I think this Panthers secondary is, and that's how bad I think they're going to get exploited. I think Alvin Kamara is going to have a big game. I think Mark Ingram is going to have a big game. Honestly, maybe the Panthers keep it close for a while, but then ultimately the Saints are going to pull away. Cam's going to make some patented Cam Newton mistakes, and maybe the Panthers get some garbage time points, but the Saints should win this game. I feel pretty comfortable in saying that. The spread +6.5 to me should be higher. The Panthers haven't given us any confidence, any reason to pick them. Honestly, you have to give me a double-digit point margin of victory for the Saints in order for me to be interested in any type of betting here. I'm taking the Saints on the spread. I think they win by at least 10 points. I'll take them outright and on the spread, and they continue to dominate this season. So with that, we finish our pick'em games. Now looking at our locks of the week, we start with Tampa Bay at the Baltimore Ravens. Give me the Ravens here in this game. Lamar Jackson versus that Tampa Bay defense. I think he'll have a field day. I think that defense for the Ravens shows up as well. Jameis Winston is a guy that likes to take too many chances, and I think those chances are going to come back to bite him. And the Baltimore Ravens will have several takeaways. Give me the Ravens to win this game at home. Moving on, Seattle at San Francisco. This one should be simple. The Seattle Seahawks need to keep winning. They're in playoff mode. The San Francisco 49ers, look, I think they were lucky to win last week. The last time these two teams played, the Seattle Seahawks absolutely blew out the 49ers. I don't know if it'll be as decisive here, but the Seattle Seahawks should win again. Then, Philadelphia at the Rams. It's as simple as Carson Wentz isn't available in this matchup. Insert Nick Foles. I think he's going to struggle versus the LA Rams defense, and I think the Rams offense comes back in a big way. Like I said before, Gurley and Jared Goff, look for both of them to have huge games as the Rams win again. And finally, the Saints at the Panthers. The Saints should win this game. The Panthers right now, they just don't know how to finish a game. They don't know how to hold on to a lead. And the Saints have been their kryptonite for a while now. They beat them 3 times last year. I think they'll beat them twice this year. And even though it's a home game for the Panthers, I will take Drew Brees and the Saints to have a decisive victory over the Carolina Panthers. And with all of that, we finish up our locks of the week as well. And as always, let me know what you guys thought. Did you agree, disagree with these picks? If you guys might have any other questions, let me hear them as well. And as always, if you guys enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in future videos.